All right, everybody, what's going on? Gfunk is back, and I'm here. I got a special guest today for you guys, but before you guys come in, make sure you smash that like button for me. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. I got a real nice show lined up today for you guys. But I want to thank everybody for hanging in there with me. I know I've been gone for a little bit, been moving. I'm in my new place now, so everything is all good, man. I'm ready to get back in there, start doing some more work, start doing some more videos. Right now, I'm gonna share this to my social media platforms. Just give me 1 second, guys. Make sure you smash the like button on the way in. Video has been shared. So, all right, let me go ahead and start this camera. What's good, everybody? I know it's early, only got a few people in here, but hey, what's up, man? Gfunk is back, and I'm ready. And I would like to introduce a special guest here, man. This is someone that I've known for quite some time. Actually, went to elementary school with myself and my sister. He was in my sister's grade, so he's a few years older than me. You know, I had to throw a little jab at him, you know. But this is a former pro boxer and from my hometown, Daniel Savala, man. Say what's good to everybody, man.
What's up, everybody? What's up, Gfunk? Glad to be here.
Thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. It's about time we got to sit down, man. It's been a long time, you know.
I know we want to talk about so much. I'm just thinking about all the times I just love to talk. You talk to any fighter, past, former, and they can talk all day about boxing. You know,
Hmm.
past, present, future. Yeah, so I'm excited to be here. Excited to talk and share.
Cool, man. So yeah, my boy here was a professional fighter. You know, he's trained with some good fighters. He's been in there with some real good fighters. He's been on ESPN. You know, I've seen him fight a couple times here at the old Arco Arena before we got the new beautiful Golden One Center that we got downtown. And always an exciting time, man, watching this guy fight. um, but why don't you go ahead and let us know where you know, your background, man. You come from a family of fighters, man. So let us know your background in the fight game, man.
Yeah, it's third. So I'm a third generation fighter from Sacramento. My grandfather, Trino Savala, was really popular in the early 1960s. He sold out the auditorium. He's got two really big wins under his belt. Most famously, he beat an undefeated contender named Jesus Pimentel, who I actually had a chance to meet when I was living in Los Angeles a couple years back at the old Ten Goose boxing gym. Um, he was ultimately knocked out and retired by the Pajarito Moreno, who was the Julio Cesar Chavez of the 1960s. Guy was like 20, 30 something, no, 30 knockouts. And then in the 1980s, my father, my uncles Mario, Richard, and Danny, they had some pretty big shows at the Memorial Auditorium. My uncle Mario was the NABF flyweight champ. My uncle Richard was the California State champion. All two of them world ranked. Uncle Mario was ranked number 3 in the world at one point. Had some really great wars. And so, you know, true to form, Savala with the fighting pedigree, born and raised in Sacramento, kind of lived up the street from the old Capitol boxing gym on Stockton Boulevard as a young kid. I walked in there, and you know, one of the coolest things about the Capitol, it's one of those old school throwback boxing gyms where you go in there and it still smells like an old gym. It's the worst smell you ever. You don't want it. Doesn't smell good, but it smells like a gym. And I don't think I've been to a gym in Sacramento since that smelled the way the Capitol gym smells or smelled. Uh, but you
I
remember seeing all
remember.
the right? You remember seeing all the posters on the wall from the 60s and 70s and the 80s from all the great days in Sacramento, and so many champions had trained. George Foreman had trained there. You know, any major fighter who fought here in Sacramento, you know, got his warm up, came in town a few days early, and the Capitol Gym was one of the historic boxing gyms in Sacramento. So I trained there as a kid, all the way until the time they closed down in 2001, and never looked back, man. Walked in the gym and just loved it. Fell in love with something.
Dude, I know exactly what you're talking about with that smell in that gym.
You remember that, man? It's like that'll get half the people not to come back. They walk in like, oh, you get used to it. After an hour, like you don't even know, you don't even realize it anymore. But
Yeah,
the
yeah.
house
But
has to smell that way.
another thing I remember too about walking into that gym several times with other friends that train there as well is hearing one of those trainers in there. The first thing you hear is, "Keep your hands up."
Yeah, yeah, man. The Capitol Boxing Gym was out of a movie, man. Like I've been to so many gyms here locally, even across the state. I think there was only one other gym I was in. I forget the name of it, but it's in Woodland Hills. Not in Woodland Hills. It's a small little town, small little neighborhood in Los Angeles, San Fernando Valley, near Woodland Hills. It's coming to me, but it that was an old gym that I walked in, and it kind of looked like the Capitol Gym. Freddie Roach's gym is similar too, but it's been upgraded over the years. But it's hard to find those old school gyms right out of a movie with the old hand painted signs, those old school. Remember Ernie Guevara used to hang out there.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, man, that's what a piece of history in Sacramento. I'm so lucky that I had a chance. I was one of the last fighters to fight out of there. Was the last amateur really to come out of that gym, and like I represented Capital like the last 1997, 98, 99. Me and Sergio Martinez also were one of the last fighters to represent Capital Boxing Gym as amateurs. So,
That is definitely a historical gym here
mhm.
in Sacramento, man. You know, it sucks, man, driving down Stockton and seeing that it's I think it's like a Chinese restaurant now or
It's a
something, you know,
Chinese
like
restaurant. Yeah.
yeah, it's like wow, it's unbelievable. But I remember going in there and seeing guys just going to absolute war sparring, man.
Hmm.
Like there were some good sparring matches in there. I believe one of the pro fighters that was fighting out of that gym at the time was you remember Rogelio Castaneda, I think his name
Yeah,
was.
Rogelio.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was one of the main dudes there. I seen him spar several times there. I think you fought on one of his undercards. I think I was at that fight. You fought that night. Another mutual friend of ours, Richard Page, who passed on,
Hmm.
may he rest in peace.
Yeah.
Uh, Fought that night also. So man, those are
Yeah.
some good memories, man.
Yeah, and the Castaneda brothers, man, it was three of them. Three of them. And Ernesto Castaneda was a great amateur, solid amateur. I remember he turned pro right after Rogelio did, and he moved up in weight and didn't do as well. But man, I thought he was gonna do. He was just a tremendous amateur. I mean, this guy, and then Rogelio, their father, Ernesto Senior, and then Rogelio, man, he just took it to a whole nother level after he kind of stopped training with his dad. Actually started training with Ernie Guevara's son, Prince Albert. Prince
Yeah.
Albert Guevara trained him for those last couple fights, and then he just went in there and just started beating cats up. Became a champ. But yeah, Rogelio, man, he can crack. He worked hard. He was little, but he worked hard.
Yeah, I remember Prince Albert, man. We walk in there, he'd be yelling at people, and he just passed away recently too, man.
He
And
did. They're
yeah,
right. Prince Albert was the last one that just took Rogelio and just completely not retooled him, but just I don't know what it was. When Rogelio stopped training with his father and went and trained with Prince Albert, things really changed for him.
yeah. And once that gym closed down, man, everybody, well, a lot of people, I don't know if everybody, but I know a lot of people that trained at Capitol went to go train at Mateen's gym after that.
Mateen, the
Yeah,
Washington Neighborhood Center still, and like I said, if you think about like my career and where I what I was hoping for, and I think the closing of that gym hurt my career in a way because you didn't have a home gym anymore. Like you didn't
yeah,
like you had to go gym to gym to get sparring. That's what I love about Sacramento when I think about how much love I had from all these different coaches and gyms. Um, Not having your own gym, man. You had to find like I went in Willie Jordan, his gym in West Sacramento, Mateen's gym, um, Castaneda's had a gym, and just bouncing gym to gym kind of without a home. And it sucked. It really, man, going into someone else's house, like that's what it was. It's going into someone else's house looking for sparring. And And fighters, man, we all love each other. We all got respect for each other. But you go into their house, man, it's a different feeling. You know, it
Yeah,
is. I had love the old Pal Gym in South Sacramento Park back in the days. Like, had love. Ray Woods used to train fighters there. Um, Marshall Ledesma, Manny Diaz. Manny Diaz had fighters there.
I
You
remember
walk into those
Manny.
old gyms. You walk in those old gyms, and even though you know you got love, they look at you like you're lunch meat, man. Like, oh man, everyone's kind of sizing you up, and it's tense. We did the same thing when
Absolutely.
people came to our house, though.
Oh yeah,
So it
I've
was
seen that
cool.
go down a few times, man. I remember I went with a friend of mine. We went from, I believe this is when he was still training at Capitol, and we went over to the Washington Center downtown.
Yeah,
And man, we got in there, and these dudes were, I mean, they were eyeballing us as soon as we walked through the
sizing you up.
door.
Right, like your lunch meat, man. Like who's this? After a while, though, like I had a lot of respect. Like I remember I went to the regionals in Central Cal, and like in the 96, 97, we were just Sacramento amateurs were just hitting it, man. Mike Sims, uh, you had myself, you had Maisie Woods, Daryl Woods. I mean, and we're just hitting it, and we were having success, and so there was like a better level of camaraderie. But and so you walk in some gyms, and it was cool. But if you were a new fighter looking for sparring or coming to gym, people look at you like, you know, lunch meat, lunchtime.
Absolutely, man. I've seen some wars from guys from different gyms walking into other gyms, but man, those are great memories. So, let's talk a little bit about now, since we talked about Capital Boxing, man, and how sad that is to see it gone. Um, let us know about your amateur career, man, and how that went, and let us know about that.
Yeah, it was a different era. Like Sacramento is such a better place today for their amateur programs. Going to a gym like the Capitol Gym in the early '90s, um, you rarely had an opportunity to fight here in Sacramento. And as like a kid, I was low income. My coaches, basically paid for everything traveling, so we didn't get to travel that much. We fought local shows rarely. I think twice a year there was a show. They had one at what's that old country club in downtown. There was that club, and if you were lucky, I remember I fought in a show on Del Paso Boulevard in like 1995, 1996. So we had to travel a lot. We had to go up and down Northern California for smokers in the tournament season. So it wasn't until like the 1998, 1999 where you start getting fights under your belt. You start advancing in the tournaments and having a chance to travel throughout California and parts of the Western United States. And that was a big changer for me. It boosted my confidence as an amateur, leaving Sacramento, driving. It's so many memories as a kid, getting in a van on the weekend and driving it, whether it be San Francisco, whether it be Merced, Tulare, Los Angeles, and fighting. And it helped me as a young man and as an amateur just build my confidence. First time I went to regionals, first time I went to Los Angeles, compete in the States. You had three major tournaments back in the days. You had, obviously the PAL Championship, the USA Championships, and then the Golden Gloves. Golden Gloves is obviously, everyone wants the Golden Gloves, but it's tough. Northern California, I was as an amateur back at 118 and 122, or 126. I was killing it at 126, my best weight, killing it in Northern California, killing it in Central California. Okay in LA, but man, LA just it was just a different beast. So many fighters out there, and I got beat every year advancing to the nationals against Stephen Lovano, who became obviously a world champion. But you end up fighting the same guys over and over again locally at the Northern California Central and the State Division. But it's tough. But finally breaking out the year Stephen Lovano turned pro, getting a chance to fight some national competition really helped me before I turned pro. But it was a beast. It was hard here in Sacramento. Sacramento amateurs today have it way better because there's fights more frequently. You can fight a lot more. I finished with about 67 amateur fights where I could easily done 100 more, 100 plus fights, which I think any good pro needs to have at least 50 to 100 amateur fights under their belt to really build a style, right? To really develop their craft. And at the end of the day, even if you're losing, even if you're changing your style up, you're learning how to be professional. You're learning how to make weight. You're learning how to train. You're just building all these things that a lot of fighters when I was coming up didn't have that. Now they do. Shit, you got kids these days, man, going to all these like special conditioning coaches, dietary. It's amazing. Like I'd love to be an amateur fighter today. I'd be all over YouTube probably or something, you know?
Oh yeah, social media, man, has done a lot for people, especially things like that. Um, what are some of some of the accomplishments you had in the amateurs?
In the amateurs, I have about 67 amateur fights. Have about lost. I don't know my record. I mean, I don't even remember. Like I have like 3 separate books that I've fought. But I have about 15 to 16 losses, which is not uncommon in the amateurs, just because you fight so much. But I did well in Northern California between 1997 all the way to 2000, early 2001. Swept Northern Central, Northern and Central California, and mostly all the tournaments. Did well in San Jose, Oakland, Sacramento, and Los Angeles, where I just had most of my wars, man. And then fought in the West, fought in Oregon, fought in Washington as an amateur, up and around most of the Western United States. Had a chance to travel nationally to a tournament that was put on by Ringside, one of Ringside's first tournaments in Kansas City in 1999. So it's just fun. So just a lot of traveling. No major national titles, but was able to crack the top 10 in 1997 and 1999 nationally. But could have done a lot more if we had a better infrastructure for amateur fighters in Sacramento.
Right. And we got a question here from one of the
Yeah.
viewers. Excuse me, I'm drinking beer, so you know how that is. We got Chicano Prophet, who's one of my friends here, man. Thanks for tuning in, Chicano Prophet. He says, which weight class were you fighting in through the amateurs and height?
So I was short. I was a short fighter. So I'm about 5'3.5". I fought all the way at 109, 120, 118, and 126 pounds as an amateur. 126 pounds is the biggest I ever went as an amateur. And they changed the weights sometime in the late 1990s. I forget. So my math is a little hazy, but 118 and I believe 122 were the weight classes in the when I was there, when I was competing.
Dude, I don't even think I can remember the last time I was 126 pounds.
And I was short. A lot of the fighters were always taller than me. You know, so it's
Yeah.
definitely tough.
So while you were coming up, man, in the amateurs, who were some of your inspirations as far as like pro fighters? Who did you draw inspiration from, or who influenced you the most, man, in your style of fighting?
So my favorite fighter was Johnny Tapia. Johnny Tapia. I came up when the Johnny Tapia Daniel Romero war were happening, but Johnny Tapia was just represented some of the best hand speed and boxing ability and just well placed punches. I was cursed. So my curse in being a student of boxing is having grown up idolizing obviously Johnny Tapia and then being part of and seeing the evolution of Oscar De La Hoya as a fighter. Because as a 5'3" amateur, stocky, like I would tell my 17-year-old Danny today, like, dude, you need to just be a bruiser. You need to just get on your feet. You need to just be a tank and just run through motherfucker, right? That would be my advice to him. But I grew up watching these like amazing boxers and technicians like Johnny Tapia and then seeing Oscar De La Hoya, who was just one of the best complete punchers and fighters I remember as a kid. And so here you have this short 5'3" Mexican that should have been fighting like Marco Antonio Barrera, was trying to perfect these beautifully placed body punches, these perfect uppercuts, and these hooks, and really trying to be as technical as they were. And I got wrapped up in that, and my style really evolved around, Johnny Tapia being short but being a boxer. And so it hurt me a few times because when you're with someone who's like, when you're 5'3" and your guy's 5'9", like fuck, what are you gonna do? You know,
Right.
you can't box. You can't box with these guys. But I was able to though. There's a few big guys I was able to box. I learned a trick of getting low, like standing lower than I really was, and as I got them punching down, I was just whopping them up top. But yeah, those are
Dude,
two of my favorite fighters.
I remember Johnny Tapia. You know what's funny is I've been meaning to make a video on fastest, I guess, Latino fighters,
Mm-hmm.
just because we have so much downtime right now. I'm just thinking of videos to make. One of them was, who had like the top 10 fastest guys as far as hand speed goes as a
Yeah.
Latino fighter. Johnny Tapia would definitely be in the top 10, if not top 5. And this is before the whole, Mi Vida
Yeah.
Loca Tapia, like
Yeah. No,
what
he
most
was
people
just
know
so
him.
crisp.
Mm-hmm.
He'll place a body shot on you, man, an uppercut, just some of the best. Again, and a big bias that I developed over the years is just being able to watch fighters like Johnny Tapia and Oscar De La Hoya. And as those fighters kind of faded away, and I remember when Marco Antonio Barrera became and Margarito became the thing, and those guys are just straight up sluggers, man. Sluggers that were durable. Barrera became a slightly better boxer over the years, but for the most part, they're just sluggers. And I probably should have been a slugger, instead of trying to be. But it is what it is.
I took a liking to Barrera because as a young kid coming up, I mean, Chavez was the guy, he was that
Yeah.
dude in the early 90s. So, like, when Chavez started to fall off, with age,
Mm-hmm.
Barrera was like the next guy. He was supposed to be like the next Chavez in a way, and he kind of had a similar style. He liked to throw that left hook to the body like
Mm-hmm.
Chavez. So, he was one of my favorite fighters, and I have a little bias towards him. And my boy D Style, who I do videos with here on YouTube, he was a big Eric El Terrible fan.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
You remember that war?
yeah. So him and I go back and forth with the Barrera Morales stuff, but yeah, man, those are some good fighters, man. So
But like the game, like I say, as a fan and as like a fighter, like trying to, okay, who can I idolize or who can I model my style around? Like it was just a once point in time where it was Tapia and De La Hoya had too much of it, and later on in my life in my career, it working with, I got a chance to work out with real closely with Juan Lascano. And Juan Lascano, if you watch Juan Lascano when he fought Jose Luis Castillo, right?
mm-hmm.
Just to, I mean, that fight, that his even though he lost, his speed, his move, everything was just perfect in what I wish I would have been modeling as a kid. Because punching power, accuracy, position and poise in the ring, and a slugger. I wish I would have adopted those and that mindset, I guess, instead of being a
Yeah.
boxer.
Lascano, man, he's a guy again. He fought locally here, so shout out to
Mhm.
Juan Lascano, man. The Hispanic causing panic.
Yeah.
So going into the pros, man. Let's go ahead and check out your resume here, if you
Hmm.
don't mind.
Sure. No.
But we'll go ahead and go into that. And then you can kind of let us know, the inside stuff about, your record. So here we go right here, man. Hopefully you guys can see this. We got some other brothers here asking some more questions. We'll get to you guys in a minute. So Danny, your pro fights here says you had, let's
Yeah.
see, how many fights I should ask you.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
So
many pro
total,
fights do you have?
it's 14. Should be 14 total. And one of them is I actually whooped up Abraham Esquivel. I'm still messed up about that. And Bachtrek hasn't corrected it though. Um. Yeah. I beat the brakes off Abraham. I even got it on tape. Um,
We should throw it
but
on YouTube, man.
yeah.
We could get it
Whatever.
overturned. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Raw Boxing TV, man. Thanks for being
Yeah.
here, brother. I appreciate it. Yeah. So let us know, man. Out of all, we don't have to go through all these fights here, but
Yeah. Well,
some of the ones that you want to talk about the most, man. Let's go ahead and get into
yeah.
those.
Well, it's this shows you like the real. Obviously I'm wasn't a top tier fighter, never became a world champion, but had all the potential and all the support of a local fighter. And you can see early on in my career, everything started out just as we planned. The Jaime Ramos fight might be in my first loss, which was like every fighter says, I was robbed. I was robbed that fight here in my hometown. So I saw that as just an absolute robbery. And so you see, the progression of a good, undefeated, well taken care of fighter up until that point. Up until the Jose Luis Torres fight, I fought a guy named Lino Madrigal back at Arco Arena, which, again, not to diss Sacramento, but it's tough being a fighter in Sacramento and not having the infrastructure that most fighters need. And you're talking training, sparring, management. I was very lucky on in my career being a third generation fighter, having a reputation as a good amateur, having relationships with some of the local pros, and was fortunate to have the support of legendary promoter Don Chargan. And Don Chargan, some people think he's small time, but Don Chargan is one of the most respected promoters in the country, let alone California. And so from an early standpoint, knew I'd be working with Don Chargan just because he had worked with my father, my uncles back in the '80s, and he had handled most Sacramento fighters that we all know. John Chargan and his wife Lorraine are some of the best people that I had a chance to work with. So they took care of me. They knew I was going to they knew I'd be a local draw. This is before the internet. I had been in the newspaper a few times over the amateurs, followed my Jim Jenkins and some of the local beat, followed the story of my father, my grandfather, and now what I was doing. So everything was there. Everything was there. I had a manager by the name of Sid Tenner, who was just same thing, a throwback here in Sacramento. He passed away, and that was a big deal. When Sid Tenner passed away, everything changed for Sacramento fighters because Sid Tenner is an interesting, and I think it's a great story to kind of tell. And it's not to deflect away from our conversation, but Sid Tenner is one of these guys who is your manager, and his job is to put you in the best position to win. So a guy like Lionel Madrigal, I don't remember what his record was. He wasn't that great of a fighter. He wasn't that good. He was beatable. But someone like Sid Tenner, had Sid Tenner been there, Sid Tenner would have done this. He would have paid out of his own pocket to find a guy that I could definitely beat. Some guy who needed some money, or some guy from like they say, a Tijuana taxi driver. He would have paid him out of his own pocket to come and fight me because he knows I'm fighting in Sacramento. This was the first Golden Boy show, I think, too. Don Chargan was actually the very first promoter to work with Golden Boy Promotions and create what Golden Boy is today. So Jorge Maron, Don Chargan, big matchmakers, big promoters, and this was I think this was Golden Boy's first show at Arco Arena that night. So it was a big deal, and we didn't have as much to say as who I was fighting, and so I didn't know who Lionel Madrigal was. Had Sid Tenner been there, Sid Tenner would have paid Jorge Maron personally to bring the weakest guy in the club to come and not pay them to lose, but just pay the right guy for me to fight and look good in my hometown and continue to be an undefeated fighter. So we lost Sid Tenner, and I think a lot of that has to do with kind of what happened next. And then after that, just a series of making my own decisions with friends and management of who I should fight, where I should fight, and not getting the decisions that I wanted.
I remember that, man. I think I was at that fight that night that you're talking about, the first Golden Boy event that we had here in Sacramento. Couple of guys that we knew that in the area fought that night. But yeah, man, that's good inside stuff, man, to hear about. We as fans, we love to talk to sport and things like that, but we don't know the ins and outs and how to build a career, like you would know. Shout out to my boys in the chat. We got Big Dog Willie. He says, "What's good, Gfunk? Hey, man, I hope you're feeling better, man. Staying healthy. I know you're out there on the front lines working with this COVID-19 stuff, man. Big shout out to Big Dog Willie. And we got my boy No Paul Baxianos here, man. What's up, bro? Thanks for stopping by. I'm just chatting it up here with a good friend of mine, Danny Savala, ex-pro fighter. So, yeah, man. Anything else you want to talk about here?
I got a cool little story about my same thing. People always ask me like, "Oh, is boxing rigged?" And I I can't speak from too much experience of boxing being rigged or people being paid to lose, but I've been in so many situations where no one's being paid to lose, but money is being paid to make sure that people like you have the best advantage. My pro debut. And as an amateur, when you're traveling across the country and traveling across, the rule is this, right? You and your team sit on one side of the gym, the other guy, right? You don't talk to your opponent. After a while, you know them, right? If you fought them a few times, you might say what's up. But for the most part, you pick your side of the room, and you guys don't talk to the guy you're fighting until the end till the end. As a pro, I'm walking in, and my manager Sid Tenner is walking over to my opponent's manager, who's at the time Jorge Maron, who was one of the big matchmakers here in California. And he's laughing and talking to Jose like they're drinking buddies and like, ah, yeah, yeah. And I'm thinking like, what the fuck? Why is my guy talking to that guy? What's going on? And so I go and talk, and I asked Sid, and I was like, what did he say? And Sid says that his trainer told Sid that his guy hit real hard, that he hit the canvas real hard. So here you have my manager talking to my opponent's trainer, and they're like kind of laughing. And also, who fought him on that card was Michael Sims, who made the Olympic team in 2000. So Mike Sims is fighting, who's in fighters got to make weight, right? And so Mike's overweight, so Mike's out spitting in a cup, trying to lose a pound. His opponent is 20 pounds, 15 pounds underweight, weighs on with his shoes. He drinks a big soda and has a burrito from Taqueria Jalisco. We're all together on the way to the Radisson because the guy came from Florida, had just swam here from Cuba like 6 months before. It's a crazy story, but it's kind of an example of here. Mike Sims is a semi-pro. I mean, one of the best fighters ever out of Sacramento, Mike Sims, and his opponent is hand-picked, 15 pounds underweight, but being weighed with his boots on, just so that our guys that we have a killer night. And that's the difference that someone who has your back and is managing and picking the right fights and paying a little extra money to get your guy flown in from. You guys remember who like Floyd Mayweather first fought? Who he was fighting? Thumper Cooper. Remember Thumper Cooper? You just got to hand pick these guys and get them so that your fighter can develop their confidence and get in the ring and get those wins. And once Sid was gone, I didn't really have a lot of that.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, that's something that doesn't really get talked about a lot with amongst us fans. I mean, we know a little bit about that type of stuff, but it's definitely different hearing it from someone who's actually been involved with it like that, man. What do I want to say? There's something I wanted to ask you and I forgot.
Yeah.
There was a card, I forget what night. I remember it was an Arco Arena card that you were on. I can't remember which one it was, but a lot of our guys were there fighting. We had, again, a mutual friend of ours who passed away, Richard Page, fought that night.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Otis Griffin also fought that night. Triple OG,
Yeah.
the guy who won De La Hoya's. What was the name of that competition that De La Hoya had? That
The
reality
next great
show.
champ. The
That's
next great champ.
it. Yeah, I remember that, man, and he ended up winning that thing, and
Mm-hmm.
and I think Richard ended up fighting him. I believe.
Yeah,
I don't think
Richard
he.
fought him.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's right. Richard did fight him. Fought him at the Radisson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember, man,
Yeah,
because
but I'm looking. Who'd I fight at Arco? And I knocked him out like in the first or second round, Luis Medina. And then, like I said, the Lionel Madrigal was just like I said, one of the things that happened that I don't think Lionel beat me. I don't think he was better than me, but one of those nights where you don't get a decision in your hometown, and what can you say? That's what it is.
right. So who was the guy? I remember seeing you fight on Friday Night Fights, man, and
Mhm.
it was a surprise, man, because Friday Night Fights is a show that I miss dearly. Um, for a hardcore fan like myself, man, any boxing is good boxing. I'm watching it. But I remember sitting around on a Friday evening. I was at my grandfather's house, and he was a huge fight fan also. So I tell him, I said, Grandpa, we got Friday night fights. Hey, put it on. So we put it on, and next thing you know, I see you.
Yeah,
I see you on TV, and I'm like, oh damn, like Danny's about to fight, And then I'm telling my grandpa, like, I know this guy, my sister and I, we went to school with him and stuff, and he's like, oh really? Okay, so who was the guy? Who was that you fought that night on ESPN?
that was Abraham Esquivel. So
Okay.
and like I said, that's another. So this is actually a draw. So there's two, and I wrote to Boxred, not that it matters, but I just wrote to them like 3 years ago about this. Abraham Esquivel was actually a draw, and then which one is another one where I think James Ramos at Feather Falls, I beat him. There's a mistake. But Abraham Esquivel was like 5-0, was part of like the Team Barrera, and I was just coming off. I was coming off the loss with Lionel Madrigal and then Luis Medina, who I had knocked out, right? So Lionel Madrigal was just a fluke. I come back like nothing. Luis Medina knocked him out, got all kinds of confidence. They said, "Hey, let's this guy Abraham Esquivel." I go fight him in Fresno. We went to war. I got cut in the first round. Um, I remember that fight with him because I was, your confidence, man. Like your confidence never goes away, right? When you're a fighter, because you're a badass. You can do what you do, but just the pressure, like the emotional, like ups and downs of being a fighter, like fuck, right? You have these ideas, these goals, these dreams of what your career will look like. When you take these losses or these draws, it really messes with you. So trying to get back into that, I said I was like offended, right? They wanted me to fight Abraham Esquivel 5-0, not a big deal. Let's go. After the first round of that fight, I go back to my corner thinking like, the fuck was I tripping on? Like this fool ain't nothing. I'm a good amateur, man. I've got tons of experience. I've sparred with world champions, like, and I was just so confident after that second round. Him and I fought to a draw on ESPN on Friday Night Fights. Um, and then I was disrespected that following week um with a call to fight a guy named no and Anthony Martinez. And Anthony Martinez is like a veteran. This guy's been in there with world champions, and I said, okay, let me go fight him so I can pad my record and I can get a good. He's not a name fighter, but he's been in with a lot of champs, so let me just help build this up after the Escobar fight. And I lost to the dude in my hometown, and it was like, fuck, you know, back to the
Mm-hmm.
drawing board. 2 weeks later, they call me for another guy, Dominic Coca, who's another undefeated fighter. And now I'm disrespected because they're calling me like I'm Willie Lunchmeat. He just lost. Let's try to pay him to come here and fight. So I took the fight like within a 2 weeks notice, fought him in Stockton, and I knocked him out, knocked him down in the first round, just beat him up for another 4 rounds. And then I came back to Sacramento to get a rematch against Anthony Martinez and lost to him again. And that was it for me. I just couldn't I had to move on. This is a
Yeah.
series of okay, you're trying to make these next steps for your career, and it all comes down to you got to win, man. You have to win. You know, no
Yeah.
draws, nothing. You got to win, and you don't. No regrets in my career really because I picked all those fights. Well, I didn't pick them, but I said yes to them, and they were strategic. All of them were strategic. Okay, what I got to do? I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. But for one reason or another, you just don't get the decision or you don't get the knockout. That's what it is.
Yeah, man. Well, you know what, man? It sounds like, man, you had a hell of a run, man, and you got to meet some pretty interesting people and even train with some heavy duty guys, man. Let us know some of the people that you met and some of the guys that you trained with over the years.
Yeah, well, earlier on, man, I got to train with a lot of great amateurs. I mean, you're talking about Rocky Juarez. We trained together. We Stephen Lovano out of Southern California, um, Marshall Camacho.
I hope we didn't lose them.
Friendships with Michael Sims. One world class amateur, a world champion amateur. Made the Olympic team in 2000. Got to travel up and down California with him and put it down for Sacramento with him. And as a pro, I got to be stablemates with Willie Joran, who was a junior flyweight champion of the world, in the gym with Oleg Moskev when he was a world champion in West Sacramento. Juan Lascano, obviously the greats like Tony the Tiger Lopez. Got to train with him, be around him, and travel. Got to hang out and BS with Freddie Roach several times. Um, meeting someone like Don Chargan and Lorraine Chargan, having a relationship with them, a real relationship, is something that I think about all the time. How cool, how lucky I am to just know those two people, and to and then people, man, fans, people who are, you got some boxing fans are a trip, man. Generations, people who knew my grandfather in the 60s, people who rooted for my dad in the 70s and 80s, like they still show up to fights today, man, and they're like they're ringside, they're in the back, and it's just so much love. When I fought at the Memorial Auditorium, and Memorial Auditorium is a historic place. And
Oh
this is
yeah.
like another scene out of a movie where, you know, these old dungeon buildings, with the brick buildings, the plumbing's all showing, black and white movie. And I'm in the dressing room at the Memorial Auditorium ready to fight. And I don't know how this guy got in the back, but he came from the back. He's the owner of the Torch Club. And he came in and handed me this program from 1963 when my grandfather fought there. He was like, yeah, man, like I own the bar across the street and I used to watch your grandfather here and I wanted you to have this. And it was just so special and so cool to see, like, and again, I don't know how the guy got back there because you can't just walk back there like to people's dressing room. But he walked up like it was nothing, handed me this black and white program with white and blue program with my grandfather in the 60s. And just being a part of that history of Sacramento, fighting at the auditorium. It was an ESPN fight that night too. Who was it that fought? You remember? Who it was? Willie Jordan was supposed to fight him. It was a good headline fight too.
Did he
What was his
fight?
name?
Was it
Chololo. I forget Chololo's real name.
yeah, Oscar? Was it Oscar?
Oscar Larios. Oscar
Yes, Oscar
Larios, and
Larios.
yeah, he fought against, what's the other guy's name? But yeah, Oscar Larios really, man. Willie Jordan could have been phenomenal. He was phenomenal. World champion, one of the most decorated amateurs out of Sacramento. I followed him as a kid. I used to, when there was a Bright gym in Bright, California at the old elementary school, I used to remember as a kid watching him train when he was an amateur, and then going to the Washington Neighborhood Center and watching him train when I was in high school. He put it down for Sacramento.
I remember you had a real close relationship with Willie Jordan, man. He definitely had a big following here. A lot of people supported him back in the day, man. Yeah, I remember that fight with Oscar Larios. I think that was at Arco Arena, right? Did that happen at
Arco,
Arco
he
Arena?
got knocked out. He got knocked out in the first or second round. And
Yeah.
had that not have happened, man, that division was wide open. That division, and then just the next. I mean, it was junior featherweight, the featherweight division. You're talking about Morales, Barrera, like that. But
Mm-hmm.
Larios cost him a lot of money in the end, and it was a
Yeah.
premature stoppage, I think, still. But Willie was a bad fighter, man. He was good. He used to beat me up. Yeah, I swear to God. Only two fighters have ever beat me up. Willie Jordan and Stan Martinook. Stan Martinook is the only
Ah,
other fighter that like fuck, I can never get around on him sparring. Like, well, maybe once or twice. But Willie Jordan was fuck. Yeah,
I
couldn't
remember
couldn't get
watching
around on him.
Stan. I remember watching Stan a lot at Mateen's gym.
Yeah,
That dude, you talk about punches and bunches, man. That dude could
yeah.
let his hands go, man, like crazy. I think he's still fighting.
I
I
wish he
don't
would fight
know.
more. I wish
Yeah.
I wish he would fight more, man. If I and I got love for Stan, but you just at some point you just gotta fight, man. Say yes. Say
Hmm.
yes, and they can blackball you, they can do whatever they want. But fuck, if you can get in the ring and beat somebody, that's why it's a beautiful sport. At the end of the day, it's you and that other dude.
Right.
Just give me a chance to be in the ring, and it's up to you and him. But at some point, you just got to fight.
So we got a question here from my boy
Yeah.
Nopal. Hopefully he's still here. He says he wants to know what's your opinion on VADA testing 24/7, CP CBP. Some people believe that big A-side fighters get a pass from VADA to use PEDs.
I don't even know what vada testing is.
I think it's like it's an organization that does like I guess Olympic style. I'm not sure if it's Olympic style, but it's some sort of like 24/7 testing where these fighters that train, they just get randomly tested all the time, you know?
I don't know, man. I think as technology changes, I think I'm all for like as an athlete and especially as a fighter, as hard as fighters work, I'm all for any kind of testing that makes sure people are honest. I don't think there's a big problem with performing enhancing anything in boxing. I think it's more of on the recovery side. Even as a pro, I never once thought about taking something that would give me a competitive advantage. It was always about how do I recover from losing all this weight or losing all this water? How do I recover from this cut? And I don't think it could be in the heavyweight division where you might have some performance enhancing stuff with lifting weights and speed, but um, in my experience as an amateur um, and as a pro, I just don't think there's room for a lot of fighters my size um, to be taking performance enhancing drugs that would help them anything other than recovering. Uh, and where there's an unfair advantage, man, I'm all for people to getting tested.
Right, me too, man.
Yeah,
Gotta clean this thing up. So I
yeah,
have
it's
another
fuck. Yeah,
question. Another question from Chicano Prophet says, was the prospect money enough to be a full-time fighter, or did you have to have an additional job to supplement your income?
yeah. Most the prospect money is not enough money, and no matter what, it's not. Even as a if you're an Olympic, if you make the Olympic team, right, and if you're a nationally ranked fighter and you get a good management company, and they may supplement and get an income as you train. There's some areas where yes you can, but if you're a fighter with even I know two top ranked fighters right now who are fighting what 3-4 times a year if they're lucky. That's not enough money. They have to have some sort of job. Even guys when I was with Juan Lascano, he worked I think the first year as a world ranked fighter. It wasn't until he made a few good paydays where he had some real estate he was doing. But no, you're not making a lot of money as you're not doing it for the money. If obviously you want to get into 10 rounds and above, um, you want to become a world champion so you can make some real money. I had a job I was a full-time college student while I boxed while I was a professional, and I worked full time.
Yeah, a couple of guys that I know, they shared I'm not gonna say the amount of money, but they would share with me sometimes how much they will make per fight and things like that. And I'm looking, I'm like, damn, like that's not really that much, like
Oh no, it's not. When you think about even if you're making like $10,000 a fight, which no one's making early, um, you calculate all the time and training. It's not a lot of money. Fighters are fighting maybe every 3 months if they're lucky, or every four
hmm
months if they're lucky, and so they're in the gym every day. They're training. They've got managers. They got other people who have to get a cut. And as a club fighter or just I mean, you're talking $100 a round. At some of the lower level fighters who are just your opponents, right? I think the sad thing about it too, man, is I remember my second time I fought. The guy I fought was taking down the ring after the fight. I'm leaving to go celebrate, and I look around. This motherfucker is like with a whole bunch of other fighters that taking down the ring like for a couple more dollars, and it's like, fuck, man, homies do like. I felt bad, like I wanted to buy him a beer because he worked just as hard as I did. I know he did, and but it's hard. Some of these fighters, man, especially the ones from Mexico, they fight for money. They fight for money, and I never wanted to be that guy where I was fighting for money. I wanted to make money eventually, but I wasn't taking fights because it was paying my bills or nothing like that. I was trying to be a champion. I loved this, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean the training, like that's just man, I didn't think about it till you said it like that, man. Like especially with knowing the amount of money that, guys were getting paid at the beginning of their career, like it's a ton of work, man, for what they're paying you. It's a ton
Yeah.
of work.
I was fortunate, man. I was fortunate to have people like Sid Tanner, who, as an amateur, like bought me equipment. As a pro earlier on, like bought me a little car. Like he didn't buy me a Benz or anything like that, but he bought me a little Geo Metro. Like make sure I can get where I have to go. I had to worry about those things, man. I had a little car. I needed a little money. Like took me out places. Like they took me to the fights and never had to pay for anything. So
Mm-hmm.
those things help. You know what I mean? It wasn't no envelope full of money or anything like that, but I was taken care of in that regard by him, and even a good friend of mine, John Casares, who's managed fighters now, and he managed Willie Jordan as well. Like looked out for you, man. They knew what you were doing. Um, Never took any money from me. Not a single manager has ever taken money from me because the good managers aren't here. If you have a manager taking money from you, or even a trainer on your first or second fight, they do that for money, right? It's part of their job. When management and trainers believe in you, they know you ain't making no money. They're there just to help and move you forward. And I never had no managers or trainers take money from me because they knew our plan was we're going to be world champions. We're going to be nationally world ranked at least or something, and make some money
Mm-hmm.
later. So
Yeah, that's really what it's about, man. It's just, you're gonna have to, kind of, you know, make ends meet at the beginning of your career, and then, if things go right, then you start making those big paydays. I got a question here, since I got a
yeah,
couple of guys in the chat here that I know are big time Canelo fans.
yeah, yeah.
What's your opinion on Canelo Alvarez, man? What do you think of him as a fighter?
I like him now. A couple years ago, I just thought he's a tremendous fighter, tremendous puncher, but he's a one-dimensional Mexican fighter, and we've seen this over and over again. Tremendous heart, skill, places his punches well, but to be the best, to beat someone like a Mayweather, you gotta. 3 4 years ago, he's a one-dimensional Mexican fighter, relatively flat-footed, comes forward, very. You know what to expect from him. His last two fights, he's gotten a lot better. You see some pivoting, you see some movement, you see some better boxing ability. Don't want him to become a boxer, but you want him to kind of diversify like his tool belt. Like you can't. Not everyone can be just Julio Cesar, right? Just right there, just banging one in you all day. Not with the way the division is right now. So, but I'm a Canelo fan. I like him, man. I'm always gonna support my Mexican fighters. But if you had to ask me, like fucking one dimensional.
You see my boy
Sorry.
Chicano private here laughing. No, you know what, man? It's a funny thing, man, because when I first started my channel here about 9-10 years ago, that's when like Canelo was starting to become a popular guy.
Yeah.
Especially here in the United States amongst the Mexican American community. He was already a big star in Mexico.
Yeah.
So as he crossed over to the United States, people started to see him more. He was fighting on Mayweather undercards and things like that. And
Yeah.
I just gave my honest opinion on the guy. I said, you know what, he's he looks like he's got some potential, but the way that these guys would talk about him, I'm like, he's not there yet. He's just not there yet.
I'll
And
tell you this, and well, can you imagine what Oscar De La Hoya would have done to him in his prime at 147? At 147,
whew,
it would have cut his face up. Would have cut his face up. Can you imagine what an Andre Ward would do to him at 154? Like,
ooh.
it just Canelo will bang. I ain't saying he's gonna get knocked out, but like Mijo's coming straight forward, a little bit of head movement and just eating punches. Just gonna eat them. And who's the top of the division with him right now?
Well, he's all over the place. He's got a belt at 160, 160. I believe he was supposed to fight Billy Joe Saunders at 168. That fight was supposed to be Cinco de Mayo weekend, but everything got canceled due to the pandemic that's going on.
Yeah.
But I lost a bet here, man, because again, I've been labeled as a Canelo hater just because I give my honest opinion about the guy. I don't get on my knees for him, and I don't praise everything he does. So I get labeled a hater. But I said to my subscribers here, I said that if he beats Kovalev, because he beat Kovalev in his
Yeah.
last fight, I said, if he beats Kovalev, I will buy a T-shirt, a Canelo T-shirt, and wear it on my channel. So I had to do that to be a man of my word, you know. But what did you think of that fight? Did you see that fight?
No, I haven't seen it yet. No, yeah, I did. I did see it. I liked it. Like I say, he's getting better. He's sharper. He's getting his head movement's a lot better than it was before. Like I said, I don't want to see him become a boxer, but I would like to see him do some pivots, do stepping back a little bit, a different kind of a jab. There's all kinds of different jabs, right? You got that step straight power jab. That's mostly what I see from him. I'd like to see like a hook jab with some movement, right? Him setting cats up, and that's just stylistically, maybe that's what it is. When I say one dimensionally, like he just comes forward, walks you down, has this really push on you jab, get you on the inside, really good on the inside with this position. But I just like to see more from him.
I agree.
Bernard
I think.
Hopkins, for example. Bernard Hopkins, you remember the Hopkins and Trinidad fight?
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the best boxing displays where you're not running, right? Where you stood in front of a motherfucker and you just outboxed him for 12 rounds and you just beat him up. If Canelo did something like that, developed a stand up and still came forward, I don't know. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely.
Comparing that style and what Hopkins is doing at Trinidad for 12 rounds, like not running away from him, but just in front of him, coming at him, boxing them, keeping them in front of you, and just wearing them down. If Canelo can add something like that, I wear a Canelo shirt too. But I still will. I'm always gonna go for the Mexican fighters. Always.
Right. And you're breaking my heart, man, because I was a big Trinidad fan, and boy, that fight.
Shit out of it. Trinidad was the same way though, man. Trinidad was one dimensional and just had a shitload of power. Trinidad was nothing special but power and an uppercut. His uppercut and hook was deadly. But
yes,
De La Hoya spanked him. De La Hoya outboxed him. De La Hoya got robbed. De La Hoya got robbed. Now, you might not like running and boxing, but when it comes like that was a clinic. That was a boxing clinic he put on him.
No, I don't have a problem with the way Oscar fought that night. I think he had a game plan and he stuck to it. It's just the judges didn't agree with him that night, and but I think what you said about Hopkins, and I remember what he said after the fight when he beat Trinidad. He said, what would you do if I think he said if a guy pulls a gun on you, like you're gonna run away or you're gonna try to take it from him, So, he said, I smothered him, I got all in his chest and, I took away his weapon, which is that left hook and that left uppercut, man, which was deadly, man. I mean, you saw what he did to William Gopi the fight before. I mean, that was shocking to me because even myself as a big Trinidad fan at the time, I mean, Joppy was a hell of a fighter at middleweight. It was his first fight at middleweight, and I mean, I'm thinking like, damn, Joppy, this is gonna be a tough fight for Trinidad.
No, he just knocked him out. That hook, man, that uppercut of that hook, they're vicious.
Yes, vicious, very much.
I was just watching Trinidad and Vargas the other day just for fun the other night, and Trinidad's fucking hooks and uppercuts, man. You just can't. You're just not gonna stand up to that. You're just not.
There's very few fighters were able to take that shot, man. Very few. Right. Let's see. We got some more comments here from the Canelo fans. Let's see. No Paul says Canelo is at his peak. No, he's definitely in his prime for sure. No doubt about it. Let's see. He says Gfunk don't want to hear that. No, I sure don't. Avoid Trinidad, man. I was a big Trinidad fan back in the day.
Yeah.
Let's see. He says I think George Lopez said it best when he said something about Oscar left in the judge's hands. Oh yeah, he did.
You can't.
And George Foreman was a big Oscar De La Hoya fan.
Mm-hmm.
Big Oscar De La Hoya fan. I remember his commentary would be something special, man. When Oscar would fight, I miss those days, man. Of those HBO broadcasts, man. Those were the best,
But you think back on Oscar De La Hoya's career, he doesn't have any all the big fights. He hasn't come through. Like he's got big wins, right? where he sold tickets and he's won. But if you count Vargas, Vargas was the only like prime time big main event that he was at that he won. You know, Mayweather. That was a great fight between Mayweather De La Hoya won at Staples Center. That was a fantastic fight. I mean, like I said, he lost, but it's still. I mean, I don't take nothing from De La Hoya as a fighter. Um, Hopkins, all like he's Shane Mosley. He got beat. He got beat.
No Paul says Oscar got robbed a couple of times because I thought he beat Mayweather. Let's talk about that fight real quick since he brought it up. I thought, when I first seen the fight live, I scored a draw.
Yeah.
I watched it a couple times after, and I gave it to Floyd. I thought it was a pretty competitive fight, but I just can't give the fight to Oscar. But one thing I do want to say is that when Oscar was pumping that jab the right way, that thing was landing, man. That thing was landing on Floyd. And I just, the thing that bothered me is like, you're right. He always comes up short in his big fights. But the reason for him not throwing the jab, what he said, is just, he's like, it wasn't the night of the jab, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And like, what do you mean you don't know, man? Throw that shit.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking as a fan. Like, what were you thinking about that night?
I just go back to his train. When he left Robert Alcazar years ago, everything changed. He went with Gil Glancy, then back. I don't know what it was about Robert Alcazar as a trainer, but tell me when last time you seen De La Hoya jump on his toes, bounce back and forth, and really start to stick that jab out and be dominant. That hook, that man, you go to any of those old fights, De La Hoya getting up on his toes, not running, on his toes and just outboxing and beating you to the punch. He can't do it. I think him leaving Robert Alcazar and then going with Mayweather, and it just, nah, man, you just stylistically you forget who you were, you forget you got there. Um, Something that I've always observed about Oscar De La Hoya, there was a fight. I don't know what fight it was, but I remember like it was yesterday. He stopped looking up at the sky at his mom, and he never became the same. De La Hoya, every fight during the introduction, he looked up at his mom and he prayed. He doesn't do that no more. When he stopped doing that, he was never the same.
I remember he would do that
You know,
often. Yes. The early part of his career.
this fool didn't pray to his mama. He better watch out. He's gonna get beat. But De La Hoya, my hands down, my favorite fighters. But just on those big nights, just didn't get it done. And you know what bugs me about some of the fights I'm watching these days, and I can't name one in particular, but there's a difference between surviving around and winning around. You got guys who are surviving around and thinking that they deserve a victory, thinking they deserve, you've got, if you're fighting the champ, you got to beat his ass that round. Fighting and making it out and looking like you're still standing and looking like is not enough, man. You got to beat a fighter. You got to win a round. And I see far too many fighters surviving around expecting to get a decision from a judge or expecting to win a round, especially when they're going against a champion. You know?
Right. I see here AJ 10, my boy AJ 10. What's going on, man? He says he thinks Mayweather Sr. was Oscar's best trainer. I mean, for me personally, I agree with my boy Danny here. I think that when he trained with Alcazar, he had the best movement with Alcazar. Like the way he boxed, the way he popped his jab, the way he hooked off of that jab was just a thing of beauty, man. It really was a thing of beauty. Even though I was never a big Oscar fan myself, I mean, you can't deny that left jab and left hook is just something special,
Yeah.
And especially when he's moving and he's setting traps, like it was a thing of beauty, man, with Alcazar. Not to say that Floyd Mayweather Sr. didn't do good things with him, I think that defensively he improved a little bit under Mayweather Sr. But in my opinion, I think Alcazar was his best trainer, man.
Yeah, and the Mayweather De La Hoya fight, if you go back and watch it, all the exchanges that De La Hoya did were like strategic, whereas they were coming off a clinch and he'd like bang the shit out of his of Mayweather's side. It's like those aren't really. I don't count those as punches, man. Those are just you broke a clinch and threw a flurry to try to win a round, and like if
Mm-hmm.
that's what you're doing to win a fight, man, you're not beating Mayweather. He
Yeah, he
could have
tried to
stood. He
ambush
could have.
him.
Yeah, he could have stayed out there toe to toe with Mayweather and just pop for pop from the outside and just take it, man. Take it on the chin if you have to. If you get
I
knocked out, you
mean,
get knocked out.
people disagree with me when I say this, but there's also a lot of people that agree. But I think with Mayweather's Philly shell or
Mm-hmm.
the shoulder roll, whatever you want to call it, you know, that jab, a good timed jab is gets through every time. And not only did De La Hoya's get through, but if you look at when he fought Miguel Cotto, a
Yeah,
guy who had which again shorter arms, had those little short T-Rex arms, but he had a nice, good jab, and he had great timing. Also, he landed a lot of stiff jabs and actually busted up Mayweather's nose with that jab.
yeah.
Um, he should have just fought behind that jab, man. I think, and he would have done a lot better. Could have maybe got the win that night. Who knows? You know.
Could have from the outside. Who knows how to? Like I said, I don't think there's a blueprint for beating a Mayweather yet. I think the only one who ever had a chance was a in shape and ready Manny Pacquiao, and it would still wouldn't have been. I'm not saying Pacquiao would have beat him, but had the best tools of being in his face for 12 rounds, throwing punches from awkward positions, and having enough power to get lucky a few times and maybe knock him out, maybe hurt him, you know.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that's it.
yeah. The if he could have thrown close to 100 punches around, you
Mm-hmm.
know, like yeah, that's difficult to beat. You know,
Yeah.
like him or not, Pacquiao he had a damn unorthodox style that gave a lot of people trouble,
Mm-hmm.
and he's just busy, nonstop busy.
Yeah.
You know, when he's in there,
Is.
and it's a tough thing to deal with, man.
And Pacquiao's, I said earlier, Pacquiao's, no one trains their fighters to fight like Pacquiao, to throw punches like Pacquiao. He's so unorthodox and unconventional how he does things. Like, but that's the edge for him. Whereas that's how he's accustomed to fighting, and he can throw that looping hook from an angle where Mayweather didn't see it. He can throw that wild uppercut or something and just be in his face for 12 rounds. You can't. You might take it for 4, 5, 6 rounds, but fucking 8, 9, 10, 11, and this little Filipino
Hmm.
still in your face, cracking, man.
Yeah,
You know.
I can't imagine standing in front of that. You know.
Yeah. And like I said, it was so disappointing watching Mayweather Pacquiao because you just didn't see that from Pacquiao. We're like, where's this fool at? Like, he wasn't even throwing no punches.
Right. I had a huge fight party that night too, man. I had a big giant
Yeah,
projector showing the fight in my garage. It was literally on the whole wall.
yeah.
The
I was, like I said, I honestly think he's hurt or his hands with the hand. It's a real thing because I expected so much from him. Just as the point, like that fight and Andy Ruiz was my two biggest upsets in the last couple years. Fighters who
let's
let
talk
me down.
let's talk about that, man. Because again, we got a couple guys in here
Yeah.
that didn't appreciate that win. Um, Andy Ruiz. What do you think of Andy Ruiz, man?
All right, this is going to be controversial, but I'm a straight up. Andy Ruiz is the most talented heavyweight fighter in that entire division, as far as raw talent. Like the guy has more than 100 amateur fights. He is experienced. Half the heavyweight division right now is green. Look at their amateur records. They took up boxing at age 25, 26. Andy Ruiz been in the gym since he was 14 years old. From a technical ability standpoint, he is the next heavyweight we have. The United States has an Olympian in the heavyweight division this year for the first time in probably 20 years that has a real amateur pedigree going to represent the heavyweight division. He's Mexican too. I forget his name. Goddamn. He's from Tulare too. Um, but these are real heavyweight fighters with skills. I I don't think there's any heavyweight that has real skill right now, except they're just fucking big. And
I
I guess
agree.
when you're 6'5", two something, yeah, you're gonna hurt somebody. But Andy Ruiz, it wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a fluke. The first fight, like it wasn't expecting it, and he did what fighters do. He did his thing. Caught old dude. In the second round, that motherfucker just part too many tortas and tacos and just partied too much and showed up. I was mad because I had a big fight for my fundraiser. I had a bunch of people over and like, and this fool, like, I was talking all kinds of shit. And this fool showed up and just laid an egg. And
That was very disappointing, man. That
I
was
was
very
pissed, man.
disappointing. Me
Yeah,
too, because I predicted him to win again because I just didn't think Joshua had the chin, and I still don't think he has the chin to stand up to a if Ruiz connected cleanly, But he just
yeah.
he killed himself, man, eating too many tacos, partying, you know. I
He
hope he
made some
takes
money
this,
and some,
man.
yeah.
Oh yeah, he got paid,
Yeah.
yeah.
God
I
bless
just
him.
hope he takes this loss and uses it as motivation because I agree with you, man. I do think as far as skills go, amateur pedigree, like I don't know other than Luis King Kong Ortiz, who's up there with him
Yeah,
as far as skills go, but Ortiz is getting older, man. They say he's 40. I'm almost willing to bet he's a little older than that.
yeah.
You know, but yeah, that was a truly disappointing performance by him because I do think I think he can beat Anthony Joshua, and I think he could beat just about anybody in that heavyweight division, man.
Yeah. Even Dante Wilder, I was scared of Dante Wilder, right? Really, like even his whole everything about him scares me, right? When I seen this fool in the ring, like chin in the air, like he looked like guys. Man, a hundred times, man, I've seen guys come to the gym and shadow boxers, and they just don't got it. They're just green. They just picked it up, and they just a good, seasoned, well trained fighter when you see him. You guys see that? You guys see that video on Facebook of that cop shadow boxing in the parking lot?
Yeah, I seen
You want to see it? That
that.
motherfucker's a trained fighter. Those are real punches. He used to fight. You know, seeing someone like man, it was disappointing. He might have
Definitely.
he might have picked up boxing at 25, 26. He's big. No one wants to be a heavyweight champion anymore. They want to be UFC or football or some other shit. So if I was 6'5", who knows?
Oh boy, check this out. Hot dog eating contest, huh? With Ruiz. Look, man,
Skilled.
I
He might.
understand.
He might.
Yeah, I understand, man. He's gonna have to eat crow, and he's gonna have to take the
Yeah,
jokes,
yeah.
for partying and not taking the second fight seriously. But I mean, honestly, you guys can't deny the skills, man. If you just look at the way he fights, the way he set up that knockout too, man, like
Mm-hmm.
it was beautiful, man.
Yeah.
It was a thing of art. He was just too out of shape the second fight, man. I think Joshua, credit to him, he decided to stay on the outside and avoid any kind of exchanges. I didn't think it was the best performance. I mean, there was people saying that it was a master class. Anthony Joshua put on a master
No,
class. I did not
no,
see that.
no.
He stayed away and got himself the win, and he gets credit
Yeah.
for it. But if Ruiz is focused and puts down the hot dogs like my 192 AKU said, I think it's a different fight, man. I really do.
But you gotta
AJ
ask you
10.
gotta even for that fight, you ask yourself, did did anyone get beat up in any round? There was winners and losers in the round, but did anyone get beat up? No,
No.
no. That's the sad thing about a fight in general. If you're the champ, like you didn't beat nobody up. You won a decision, but you didn't lump nobody up. You didn't punish them. You survived each round. You looked more composed throughout the round. Like that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You had a fat homie chasing you, and you jabbed him a few times, but you didn't dominate him. You didn't beat him up.
Right.
You the champ. You the champ.
Big Dog Willie says AJ ran his ass off. Well, dude, that ring that they had there in Saudi Arabia, I mean, that thing was as big as
Hella
Noah's
big.
Ark.
Mm-hmm.
That was I mean,
Hella
you could
big
have
ring.
huge ring so he can move around there.
Yeah,
I
like that's the fight. So Joshua got in the ring. He moved around. He survived, but I don't think he beat Ruiz up. Not 1 minute in the round.
dude, that's
Like I'm the
exactly what
champ.
I
I'm gonna
said.
beat him up.
That's exactly what I said in my post fight, man.
Right?
He got the win, but he went in there to make sure he survived 12 rounds, man.
Mm-hmm.
And he hey, a lot of that is due to again Ruiz shooting himself in the foot. You know, is there any other new fighters today that you're keeping your eyes on, man, or anybody that you have a liking to right now?
I like Ryan Garcia. I think he's super fast. I'd like to see him gain a little bit of weight, and I'm praying he has a chin. Time will tell, but I really like his style. I've been seeing him since he was a little kid. His speed ain't no joke, but I'm praying he has a chin. And I really like Teofimo.
Yes,
Theo,
I
how you
like
say his name? Yeah,
Teofimo
he's a
Lopez.
beast.
Yeah.
Yeah, Teofimo Lopez. He's a gangster. He's just not a good fighter. He's a thug, and and that's the hey man, that's the difference. Ryan Garcia, I mean, different way, but like guy like Ryan Garcia, like really nice guy, like got carries, but he ain't a killer. I can tell you that right now. Ryan Garcia ain't a killer like Teofimo is. You know.
Yes, a guy like Teofimo Lopez, very dangerous because he's got tremendous hand speed.
Mm-hmm.
We know his power is legit. After he knocked out
Mm-hmm.
Richard Comey,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
is he's a real legit guy. Uh, he caught him with a clean right hand and one punch. The fight was over. I mean, he
Yeah.
got up, but he was not. The legs weren't there. He couldn't recover. He's got legit power, legit speed, and the timing that he had on that
Yeah.
right hand. Because they're both guys are throwing right hand at the time.
Mm-hmm.
His just was a little bit shorter and got there quicker. So when you have that kind of combination of things, man, it's dangerous, man. I think he's got a hell of a shot. I mean, the Lomachenko fight, it got postponed obviously because of the pandemic that's going on. But I think, man, if he gets in there with Lomachenko when it happens,
Mm-hmm.
I really think that the only obstacle he's going to have to overcome in that fight is he's got to stay focused and not get frustrated with a guy like
Yeah.
Lomachenko. Because we know Lomachenko is a guy who can frustrate the hell out of you with some of the things he does in there. So if he could just stay poised, stay calm, trust in his game plan and trust in his skills. I mean, look, Jorge Linares caught him and dropped
Yeah.
Lomachenko. I
Yeah.
mean, I can only imagine if a straight right hand from Teofimo Lopez lands, like what would happen,
Linares got some good pop, but he ain't like, you know. But Theo Lopez, man, he's to me, he's scary. He's just like got the boxing ability, got the power, he got the street man. Like he just looks street to me. Like, what's the other? Remember, was it a cat from Oxnard years ago who became a model and a fighter at the same time? That's what I prayed would happen to Ryan Garcia. Don't start
Was
modeling,
that
man. What was his
yeah?
name? Remember?
Was that Panchito Bajaro? Was that him?
No, Panchito got caught up in the drug cartel, man.
Oh,
Panchito
really?
Bajado got caught up. Yeah, his wife was some cartel people, and he got caught up, man. Got killed her in prison, something
Wow.
like that. Yeah, I knew one of his stable mates back in the day. I was just talking about him a couple years ago. Yeah, he got caught up in the drug cartel shit. But
Wow.
what was his name, man? He was a nice guy. He was from Oxnard, by way of
Man.
Kansas.
Oh, was that Victor Ortiz?
Victor Ortiz, yeah, Victor Ortiz. Started modeling like that. I'm hoping Ryan Garcia ain't the next Victor Ortiz. Got all the skills, got everything, but fuck, man.
Oh,
Y'all
I
know
knew
what
this
happened
was
to Victor
coming.
Ortiz.
I knew this was coming. 92 AK. You something else, boy. Let me tell you. Rigo was exposed. Look, here's the thing, man. Rigo, did he lose the fight? Absolutely. But the thing is this, man. If Santa Cruz, if Scott Quigg, if Carl Frampton, I mean, who else is down there? None of these dudes want to smoke with Rigo. So the guy had to move up 2 weight classes to fight Lomachenko. Like
Rigo don't got no power. Don't have no real power. Not moving up.
no,
Tremendous skill, but no power.
Yeah. So I mean, let's keep it in perspective. 92 AKU. But yeah, Victor Ortiz was a guy who I thought could be somebody at first, but
yeah.
Apparently he didn't like getting hit in the face.
He didn't like getting hit in the face, man. And I'm hoping he's okay. I've seen him a few times at the gym in LA, but I hope he's doing well. I pray for him all.
Yeah, man. I remember after that Marcos Maidana fight, it's the first time he lost, and he got knocked out. And I remember him saying something like, I don't know if I like taking punches. He said something like that.
Yeah, he told Max Kellerman something like, "Yeah, I don't know," and Max Kellerman looked like, "What did you just say?" Like you're a
Exactly.
prize fighter, man. Like, fuck, what you been doing your whole life? You get hit.
Like,
You
if,
you get hit more sparring and preparing for the fight than the actual fight. You know what I mean? You think a
yeah.
fight's bad, you know, your training camp for a title fight is, you know, you're gonna hit way more.
I got
You
my
know?
boy D Style Boxing in the house, man. What's up, bro? Glad to see you here. We're gonna stay on here for a little bit longer. If you guys got any questions, man, let for Danny, put them in the chat. I'll try to get him up here. But right now we're just kind of chopping it up, man. So yeah, man. Teofimo, man, I really like him too, man. I think he could do some special things, man, if he you know, stays the course, man. And that's always like the scary part with boxing, man. I always say
Mhm.
that, man, with guys like they have tremendous skill. Same thing with Ryan Garcia. You know, I really like what I'm seeing out of him recently. Um, he's taking fights serious, which is what I like. A lot of
Mhm.
guys in his position that, you know, are popular. And he's got a huge following on social media.
Mhm. Yep.
But a lot of guys will let that, that's making it to them in a way, having millions of followers on social media. To me, he seems to like be hungry, like, and he's the last two fights, he's knocked guys out in the first round. The fight that he had on the Canelo undercard was against a guy who people said he was scared of.
Yeah.
People
Yep.
people said he was ducking, and he got the guy out of there in the first
Yeah.
round.
He's
So
just
I
it's the
I like that.
he's just so fast, man. Like his speed and speed kills. Speed and people don't see that shit and that's what gets him all the time. But at some point he's gonna fight, you know, some just journeyman fighter from Mexico or something that just got a head like, like a truck and just be in front of you for 10 rounds. And those are the ones that, has he been there like that with anybody? No, right? He's just been clapping fools left and right.
Yeah. Well, it was supposed to be this guy, Duno, who he was supposed to be afraid
Yeah.
of, and this was the guy who was supposed to give him some work. But as soon as he got clipped with a left hook, the fight was over.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like you said, speed kills, man. I mean, if you don't see the punch coming, man, most likely you're out of there. You
You're
know.
done. You're done. But
We got a question here from D Style Box, and he says he wants your opinion on mitt work. Is it overused?
I think now it's starting to be overused. I see a lot of people like in the Taibo style gyms or like the box fit gyms where everyone's a mitt expert. And what I see a lot of the mitt holders is in my coaches, and I had a few really good coaches. Even as an amateur, you had some nationally respected amateur coaches who the best coaches know that pad work. You see a lot of you see a lot of trainers right now with the pads pushing the pad towards the fighter, right? And now I see that, and that just burns me up because the pad work is obviously an arm workout, but it's also like timing in your distance, right? You have the distance between you and your opponent and getting full extension on your punches. Understanding your timing and your position where you're at to throw a combination. So if you're, 2-3 inches away from somebody, you're got long arms, short arms. As a fighter, you should know part of your training is, how close you got to be to get off a good shot. And the pad work with the good people, they stand at that distance so that when you throw that jab, it's fully extended. When you throw that hook, it's fully extended. When you throw that cross, it's fully extended. You see too many mitt workers right now banging their pads, waving the pads at someone like they're swatting flies at people. That ain't how it's done. That ain't how it's done. You ain't helping him. I see so many young amateur fighters right now throwing like the shortest punches ever because the mitt's getting to them before their hand gets to the mitt.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working the mitts. You're not, not vice versa. Put your hand out, and you should hear a nice, good pop of a combination. It shouldn't be, dude. But watch some pad sessions and see how many times a trainer is like basically meeting the hand before it even gets off. And so here you have this half punch, half hook, half jab, because the trainer never he doesn't do his job and hold the pad. So
Yeah,
that's my opinion.
I know exactly what you mean, man. I have a video here on my channel where I did some training with my friend at the
Mhm.
gym, and I know exactly what you mean because I was doing the same thing in the video
Yeah, yeah,
where I'm coming down like and meeting them
yeah,
halfway with the pads,
yeah,
and of course you got to have good chemistry with somebody to make it
yeah.
look good, like the way that a lot of these guys do.
Hmm.
But for years and years, we said things like, this is not to take a shot at Floyd at all. I think
Hmm.
his training is just, it's tremendous what he does in the
Yeah,
training in the gym. But his routine, people get impressed by him. For years. I always tell people, I'm like, look, man, it's
yeah,
not as good as you think.
yeah.
It's more of
That's his warm up.
yeah.
That's
And
his
I'm telling
warm
him
up.
like it's more of like almost like an optical illusion in a way
Yeah,
because
and
I said look at how Uncle Roger's literally like this.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know.
That's a warm up, man. That's a warm up. That's his rhythm. That's his vibe. But I'm talking about. I'm trying to, and that's like the scariest point for a fighter in the ring is when you're in front of your opponent. You got your hands up. You're there. When to throw, right? When to, I remember my first pro fight, man. You're in front of a dude. It's like no headgear, no nothing, lights, and you're like, okay, fuck, what do I do? And just fucking punch, And
Hmm.
but and not, I mean, not that overly simple, but it's like, you don't want to get counter punched. You want to throw that you want, and so the mitt work is so important about knowing when you got your spot open, when the guy is close enough, defense, position, and distance. Because you want to see a shitty fight, it's two fighters who don't know nothing about distance and they're hugging the whole time, right? They're hugging, and the shittiest fights you'll see are green fighters who are hugging the whole time, and the ref has to keep breaking them up because neither one of them know anything about distance, um, and position. They don't know how to do it. They're just too green,
Yeah. Here's a
you
good
know.
question from AJ10. He says, when does a fighter know when to change trainers? Can a guy only take you so far?
Yeah, I think you have to, like, I wouldn't switch trainers all the time, but there's like, I had really great amateur coaches who were like mentors and father figures to me. And when it came a point in my life where I knew a lot, like I'm learning, I'm a student, and I began to question their methodologies or what they were saying, and I knew who I wanted to be as a fighter. Um, I knew it was time to change because I wanted someone who was feeling what I was. Now, they took care of me, right? They made, they made sure I ate, and all those things that you want a trainer to really care about you and do are there. But there's another level of, can you get me out of this amateur style? Can you? My coach was a defensive guru, and so I became a really defensive fighter. And it became a time where people who criticized me, or even friends of mine, that said, "Dude, you're too much defense. Throw some punches." Right? Um, I was taught by a defensive coach. There was a point in my career where someone told me, "You know what the best defense is? Offense." And so it was like, okay, and at one point, my amateur coaches had their personal lives, their families, their jobs, and when I made a decision to be a professional, this is what I was going to do, and I couldn't work out at 6 anymore, right? I had to do this or that. I had to go with somebody who, this is what they did. They were professionals. This is their job. This is all they do because I'm serious about it. And so I made a decision to switch trainers. Um, and you got to figure out what trainer is. You got to watch how they are with their fighters. You got to make sure they have a good regiment and a good routine, and all those things are important. Can they work the pads? Do they know people? Do they got connections with people? Like, can't just jump. I wouldn't change trainers ever unless you're upgrading. And I'm not saying, like, as a person, because if people are coaching, man, they're relatively good people and they got good intentions, but you want to make sure you upgrade as far as they got a different level of skills to take it to another level, or it can be about how they can support you in your schedule and kind of what your goals are, right? If your goals are to
Hmm.
be from an amateur to be a professional and travel, and some of these coaches, man, they're just amateur coaches. They love it. They love kids. They love helping young men, and that's their space. That's all they're gonna do. They're not gonna graduate with you to the next level. So I'm all for it. Not too much though.
Right, right. Now I think, man, I seen that hurt some fighters. Like guys who just switch fighters all the time. Like, I see almost every fight. Some boxer is like, "Oh, I got a new trainer now. I'm doing this with this guy and this guy." Like, for me, it just seems like if you want to change your style, like it's going to take more than just one
Yeah.
fight. Like
Most fighters, man, most fighters are who they are. You're not gonna change them. Like you're like you can't. It's like you learn to walk and crawl this way and do this, and you're just not. It's fundamentally a trainer's not going to change everything, but there are just some nuances that maybe confident. Maybe it's about confidence, right? Maybe it's about being in Freddie Roach's gym and his camp that's going to take you to another level. Maybe it's certain secrets or tricks that Freddie Roach or Joe Goose. And I had a chance to train at the 10 Goose gym when I was in college in Los Angeles. After I stopped fighting, and just being around Joe and his crew, you just kind of seen a whole different level of professionalism, scheduling, who was in the gym, and it's just different, man. It was different. I didn't realize that till I would tell myself today I should have moved to LA and went to one of those gyms and been involved with just the scene, right? Joe Goosen, I mean, his gym was popping. He had assistant coaches and trainers that were there who were good. He had a stable of amateurs and pros there to work with, and it's just a different level.
Yeah, I mean, we saw what
Different
it
level.
did for one of our hometown fighters, Diego Chico Corrales. Man,
Yeah.
rest in peace, Diego. But man, he went to a new level, man. I mean, Ray Woods, he's a great trainer
Yeah.
who still trains fighters here in
Yeah.
Sacramento. Took him to great heights, man. He was one of the best guys at the featherweight division at the time when he got the fight with Floyd. It's just Floyd was just, Floyd was Floyd. Like what were you gonna do with Floyd at 126? Like nobody was
Right.
gonna do
Yeah.
anything with him at 126.
Nothing.
But
Nothing.
we saw, he did great things, man, with Goosen. D-Style Boxing says, should boxing develop something similar to black belts like other arts? So I guess he's trying to say like levels to the game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think they are. One of the things I'm seeing them doing the amateurs now is like the elites. They have the elite division, they have elite women where they're trying to separate, and even like the novice division. I think it's tough because boxing is not like every other sport out there. Um, but I think I mean, there's two reasons why to do that. One is for fighter development. You want to be able to have you look at our amateur teams over the last 10 years, or the last four Olympics. They haven't done well, and that's because USA Boxing as an organization isn't the best run organization as far as developing good fighters. Because it's not up to USA Boxing, it's up to individual trainers and clubs all throughout the country, and you don't become, I guess, you don't get trained under the umbrella of USA Boxing until later on at the national, international level. So at some point, they have to do something as an organization to better develop fighters that are at a certain level. When I was an amateur, um, the way a lot of in the late 1990s, leading up to the 2000 games, you had your top three nationally ranked fighters who were always fighting. Right, they on the U.S. national team, representing them in international competitions and fighting all over the world. Everyone else, no one else was doing anything. We're just fighting in clubs and smoker events. If you can do more for people who aren't rated in the top three, that might help. So you would say, like, the way the system is now, where you're ranked number 1, 2, and 3 in a division, are being farmed out and cultivated. If we did more with the other lower level fighters, that might help. I don't know if that answers the question. So there's nothing like a black belt or a level, other than you have your regular novice division for people with less than 10 to 15 fights sometimes, and you have your open division, your junior level for kids, junior
Yeah.
Olympics for kids under 15. So you kind of have those, but when you get to a high level, when you're a competing elite amateur boxer, if you're not ranked, if you're ranked in the top 10 in your weight division, you're still not getting enough from USA Boxing unless you're in the top three, because your
Yeah.
Pan Am games, international competition, USA versus Mexico, USA versus Canada, schedule wise. I got called back in 1997, 1998 for USA versus Kazakhstan in Kansas City. That was part of a ringside event. I don't think they even do anymore, but it's just, the number 1, 2, and 3 are busy. So hey, who else can we come to this tournament? Um, didn't mean anything for USA Boxing, but for me as a fighter, it was just an opportunity to continue to compete on a higher level. Because if I'm not competing nationally or internationally, I'm just going to smokers. You look at really great amateurs in Sacramento like Brandon Gonzalez and Stan Martinook at the time, nationally ranked amateurs. But if they're not representing the United States competing, guess what? They're here beating the shit out of guys who have, technically can fight because they have more than 10 fights or an open division, but they're nowhere near the caliber of fighters some of those guys. It's really like, Mike Sims in 1999, him and I going to Tulare for the Golden Gloves, and Mike's a world rank. He's a world champion amateur, and he's fighting a guy with like 19 fights who's like, 28 years old. Like, guy doesn't stand a chance.
Yeah.
But that's the only, he's an open division technically. Mike Sims just,
Mike Sims was holding it down back in the day, man. I remember that.
Mike was the best, dude. Mike got done dirty. The USA Boxing did him dirty.
Yeah, that's terrible. So I think what D-Style was saying was like, levels so that there's not fake people training. Like, and he says, let me click this highlight here. Oh, wait a minute. He says, like, if I want to learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I can check dudes' credentials via belt level, And I think, if I can answer that before you, that's something that I've always thought about, like, and I think that would help save fighters' lives, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, if guys train properly, defense properly to protect yourself properly, you won't take as many unnecessary blows as you should. We all know, and firsthand that this is a dangerous sport.
Mm-hmm.
There are long-term effects, and the better you defend yourself, the better chance you have down the road to keep your faculties in order.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if guys aren't properly trained to block hits or to avoid getting hit, that's going to increase your chance of ending up with brain trouble in the future.
Yeah.
That's something that I've always thought about, man. Like, because I don't know if there's any way to make the sport more safer as far as equipment goes or rules, but I think where we could start at and what could be a big help is just training in general.
Training and picking, like, if you're a parent and you have a child who you want to start boxing, and where do you pick a gym? And sometimes it's you just pick the gym that's closest to your house, or you really have to take a second level and look at the trainer, the amount of experience they have. USA Boxing has a certification program for trainers that anyone can take, though, right? It's a class, and so no disrespect to like Title Boxing and like their gym they have in Midtown. Great for people who want to work out, but a few of their trainers are technically certified USA Boxing coaches. Are those the people you want to train you to be an elite amateur fighter? No, they just got the certification online, and they're qualified to lead a class and they know some basic things. But are they elite level coaches that can make you a winner? No, they're not. That is, you have to look at in the amateur division where it's really important. You can go to some of these fights and you can tell right away who's serious. What clubs? There's clubs that got their trucks, they got their t-shirts, they come deep. You can see the way the coaches interact with the kids. They're well disciplined. They're tightly ran organizations. Versus you have one guy who trains his kid in his garage or something like that, and they show up. Not that they're worse than the other one, but there's different quality of gyms that you can belong to. I was at the Capital Boxing Gym where Joe Guevara and Dennis Velez are running the gym for most of the years and taking us to the shows. We had T-shirts and I had we had matching everything, so we looked kind of legit, right? When we showed up, it was about pride and representing the Capital Gym in Sacramento, and that says a lot about an organization, a club.
Yeah.
Benny Garcia has a lot of fighters here in Sacramento that you can see clearly how he interacts with his fighters. You like it or you don't like it.
Yeah. Oh man, Capital Boxing, man. So many good memories there. Too bad it's a damn Chinese restaurant now on Stockton Boulevard, man. That's terrible. But
US,
AJ 10. Oh, go ahead, bro.
no, USA Boxing has some basic tools though, where like you can call the local. They have something called the local LBC, local boxing like commission for amateurs. You can call them. They're usually a local person for NorCal, and you can say, "Hey, I want to start this gym here." And they'll tell you straight up if it's like a certified USA Boxing gym, if it's um if the coaches are licensed or not. You want to have license. If you're taking your son or daughter to go to an amateur boxing gym to be amateur fighters, you do want to make sure their coaches are at least licensed, not certified to train, but licensed coaches have active books to travel with kids and to like they've been to events. It means they're fingerprinted, things like that.
Okay, yeah, that's good information there, man, for sure. AJ 10 has a good question here. He says, "What should a fighter do if he thinks he sees something different that is different from the trainer's instructions? Should he trust his instincts or should he listen to the corner's game plan?"
That's tough, man. It's always if you're in a fight. I mean, if you find yourself in a fight and you've trained with fighters, you as a person have to come in there with at least a certain amount of buy-in to what you're doing. If you don't believe in your coaches, if you don't believe in what they're saying, you shouldn't be in the ring with them on your team, right? And that's a part about being a trainable athlete, right, or a coachable athlete or a coachable fighter. You have to, at some point, just believe in what they're telling you, believe in what they see. I have been in the ring, and you're the one, right? You've been in the ring. You see it better than they are. You see something that might work. Um, it's an individual decision. I don't have too many memories where I did something contrary to what my coach has said. And if a coach is in your corner being overly instructive, like the good coaches aren't overly technical on instructions, right? They're motivating you. They're helping you remember the basics about your training and what you've done to prepare, right? If you studied your opponent, I fought a guy from King's Boxing Gym every year as an amateur. He was super tall, and we fought him all the time. And it was always something different with him, though. And my coaches, we had a game plan for him. Here's how we're going to start. He always got tired, so let's just weather the storm for a round and then get on him. Um, you should always have a game plan with your coach. Switching it up in the middle, it's up to you, man. It's up to you to. If you find yourself doing that too much, then you may want to, I think, question your buy-in with your coach and your coach's philosophy on what you're doing. Because you know, boxing is a team sport. I mean, it's you and him
Whether you
in there,
like it or
but
not, yeah.
your coaches are preparing. Your coaches see it. Um, we're our biggest critics, I think, as athletes and fighters. But um, every fighter will go back and look at their fight afterwards and be like, "Oh shit, right? I didn't even see that, or I didn't know that," because you're just so into the moment. You're so into the crowd. There's all kinds of variables that'll just throw you off. And you go back, and my coaches, like I say, weren't overly technical on their advice to me in the corner. Not throw a hook left. No one knows when that opportunity is going to open up. It's more of, hey, settle down. Hey, remember to cut the ring off. Hey, keep that right hand up. Those things that they're seeing that you're slacking on, because cutting the ring off is part of your strategy to get them to the corner so you can bang them on the right, or using feints because they're seeing that the guy's susceptible to feints. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, that was great, man. Man, this has been a hell of a show, man. If you guys, again, we're gonna wrap this up soon. So, any last questions, get them in there now. If not, we're gonna pull the plug on this one. We got a tremendous amount of time right now due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm hoping I can get my boy on here again in the future, if he's up to it. But man, it's been a hell of a show, man. I just want to say thanks, man, for coming on, sharing, your knowledge of the sport with us, giving us some inside stuff, that us fans aren't really, we don't really get to see, or hear about. But yeah, I know you said you wanted to talk about. We kind of got off topic a little bit. I know you wanted to talk about some of the local fighters, man. Real quickly, if you want to go into that, you can, man.
Yeah, locally, man, I think we just have an opportunity. If you're local here in Northern California, particularly here in Sacramento, we got a couple really good up and coming fighters that we all kind of get behind and support. I think it's important that even though there are these small, these small club shows drawing 300 to 500 people, it's not the MGM Grand, but when these younger fighters have an ability to sell tickets and draw and create a fan base, it helps them long term. It helps the promoters have more confidence in them to risk their capital to host a show, pay that fighter, him or her, a little more money. It gets fighters begin to get a reputation of drawing a good crowd, and they get the bigger fights, and it helps them long term because they're not making a lot of money on these small shows, or they're just teeing themselves up for bigger things to come. So David Melgoza is a beast of a fighter here in Sacramento, out of the Roseville Jose Morales boxing gym. He's doing really well. Stan Martinook, if he as a pro, I'm hoping he continues fighting. I'll support him whatever he does. Alberto Torres is a beast. His last fight. Alberto Torres is one of the most dangerous fighters in Sacramento when it comes to just ability and just heart and determination. Look out for him, man. He's doing great as a pro. So hoping to see him do more. We just got some good nationally ranked amateurs in Sacramento. Come to all the amateur fights.
Yeah, I've been trying. Man. I went to one of the ones in the summertime, and I seen a young fighter. He was the headliner. His name was Pedro Moreno, and he's out of Cabrillo Boxing Gym here in Sacramento, and put on a good show. You know, he did his thing. He went in there. I think he beat the guy. I think it was an 8-round fight. I'm not sure, but you know, he went in there and did his thing. There's a few other guys from Will Vila fought from Falls Boxing. So it was a pretty good show, man. I was impressed. I thought a lot of these fights were good. You know, you got an invite here, man. Let me check. Let me share this with you. My boy D Style. I do shows with him. We've been doing shows Wednesday nights. Called Hispanics Cause a Panic. That's what the HCP stands for here.
Yeah.
Shout out to Juan Lascano. You know, who you did train with back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, here in Sacramento. But he D Style wants to know if you know, when we get back on, if you want to join us one time, man.
Yeah, I would love to. I love talking boxing, man. It's boxing, one of the best things that ever happened in my life as a young man. And I got story after story that I can just love talking about. And I love dishing it out sometimes too on some of the controversial stuff. Some of the shitty, you know. I don't mind.
Yeah, we can get into some of that, man, for sure. Let's see if we have any more questions here. What does it says? When? What does it say? When will there be a big boxing event at the Golden One Center? We need. Oh man, I wish they would bring one here, man. It's a beautiful place, man, and Sacramento, man. Yeah. I remember back in the day. One of my favorite fights from a local fighter was Tony the Tiger Lopez versus Jorge Paez at Arco Arena. That place was sold out, man. Like 18,000 people. It was on national TV. I actually had that fight on VHS. As soon as I get my VCR set up, I know VCR, huh?
Yeah.
But, as soon as I get my VCR set up and my TV, I will be doing a review on that fight because that was a big fight here, man.
It was. That one, even the fights with him and Rocky Lockridge. He had 2 fights with Rocky Lockridge that were big. I think those are HBO fights as well. But Jorge Paez, that was a big fight. Tony put it down for Sac, and we could ever, like I said, that's a Don Chargan production. Don Chargan has passed away, so we don't have a big promoter in Sacramento anymore. So the only way that happens now is that you supporting these smaller fighters and letting people in California know that you've got a good boxing. You can sell tickets for UFC. Will most definitely be there. UFC will be at the Golden One Center if they've already have been. So, but they've got a proven ability to draw a crowd because they got a great product. But local boxing, we have to show that we have regular shows that sell out or do well financially. You got a young up and coming fighter we can get behind. That probably wouldn't be the main event, but would be on the undercard as a draw. And you look to just have a California fighter. Maybe, Blake Griffin as a pro, I don't know what he's ranked in the world or nationally, but he's got one of those smaller belts. You look to him to be like a small headliner. He did a fight in Stockton not too long ago, I think. I don't know how that was out there, but you got fighters making noise.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they did have a big UFC event here. I believe it was last year or maybe the year before. My boy George Ramos, who's a glove inspector for the State Athletic Commission here in California, he worked the event and inspecting the guys' gloves and stuff. And he's all over the place, man. I seen him when Jose Ramirez fought Orozco down in Fresno. Yeah. I seen him there. He worked the Andre Ward fight when he fought Alexander Brand, which was the fight before the Kovalev fight. And he's actually on HBO. It's funny when they made Andre Ward and Kovalev come together and shake hands and basically agree on TV that they were going to fight each other next. Like, he's in the corner right there.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool seeing people that on TV with these big events and stuff. But let's see. Chicano Pride says, Gfunk, I went to that fight. First fight I went to, I grew up in Vacaville. Oh, wow, that was nice, bro. That day, Arco Arena was sold out, and it was rocking, man. Let me tell you, no other place gets loud like Arco, man. Yeah. Since when I was a kid, I really liked Tony the Tiger Lopez. Yeah, I ran into Tony a few years back, man, and just to share a quick story. I was at a birthday party, and my dad and his friends, they all went to school with those guys. And Sal Lopez, too, his older brother. Mm-hmm. They all went to high school together and stuff. So they still keep in touch. And I seen him at the party, and we were chopping it up a little bit about his career. And I asked him, I had to ask him because I was such a big Chavez fan. I said, yeah, I got to ask you, man, what was it like with Chavez? Like, what was his power like? I swear to God, dude, the first thing he did, he looked at me and he goes, that motherfucker couldn't hit for shit.
Yeah.
He's like, bro, I'm telling you, I was in there. I talked about this dude's power, man. He couldn't hit for shit, bro. He couldn't even hurt me,
Yeah, it goes like that, man. You get fighters who I remember as amateurs thinking, oh, this guy was this, and that, and you get in the ring and it's like, what? Motherfucker don't hit for shit. Hardest puncher is Juan Lascano. Juan Lascano is the hardest puncher I've ever been hit by, ever.
Share a little something about Lascano, man, because I got my boy D-Style here, who's from El Paso, Texas. Let him know a few things about Lascano in the ring, man, and what you saw and what you felt from him.
Well, Juan was such a good dude, man. When he came to Sacramento, he was just so humble and hardworking. And him and I, we were stablemates with Willie Joran, who was the WBC junior featherweight champion of the world, and Oleg Moskev was the WBC heavyweight champion. We were all in West Sacramento working out together on Juan's first couple of fights, and the dude was just a tactician. Like I said, I think back on who I idolized as a kid, like in Johnny Tapia and De La Hoya and their styles. I really wish I would have been around a Juan Lascano as an amateur. The fundamentals of his footwork, his boxing ability, his jab, his short punches, some of the best hard, crisp short punches you'll see. I was watching him and the Jose Luis Castillo fight as a reminder of just what a hard punching tactician he was. But yeah, I got a lot of love for Juan, man. He was a good person. He was a tremendous fighter. I wish he would have fought Mayweather and made that million, though.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah,
but
probably would have made
He took a gamble.
Probably would have made $3-4 million, if he got that fight. But you know what, man? I remember another mutual friend of ours, Dominic, who trained Lascano a little bit. He actually trained him when he was training, like the beginning of his training camp here in Sacramento, preparing him for the Ricky Hatton fight. Do you remember that Ricky Hatton fight? Man, Lascano had him hurt, man. I thought he was going to knock him out. Yeah. It was a
premature stoppage, man. They did him dirty.
Yeah.
They did him dirty.
I thought, yeah, man, Lascano was getting down, man. I was like, man, he's gonna upset. He's gonna pull the upset, you know.
So Juan, like I said, Juan was right there. If he would have took the Mayweather fight, even if he still would have lost, he'd have been $1 million richer and still could have fought a Castillo or a Hatton as a tune-up or something like that and still make money. But I think he fought Stevie Johnson and then he fought Castillo and didn't take the Mayweather fight. I remember
Yeah,
we remember that. But
yeah, man. He would have got Mayweather at a good time too, because there's a couple of guys. I think was that is his name? Gosh, I'm trying to think. It's been so long. Angelo Nunez, was he the guy who
Angela,
prime time boxing, right?
yeah,
Here,
Angela Nunez fought Mayweather and he fought De La
yeah,
Hoya.
De La Hoya, yeah, but he got him early, so he didn't get them
Yeah.
paydays, you know.
Yeah, but you like I said, you never know like who, like even Corrales, like who knows if Corrales was in a better mind state against Mayweather, what would have happened? We all know now. We all know that it ain't shit to knock down Corrales or him not to get back up, and keep fighting. But the way that Mayweather fight went down, you could see a Juan Loscano man holding his own with the Mayweather. I
Yeah,
think he just, I think it was like a last minute fight, and he didn't want to, give up. He talked about it a lot. He didn't want to take the fight, and at the time, his manager Sid was upset. After that, Sid Tanner died shortly after that. Sid Tanner was managed Juan Loscano and Willie Jordan at the time.
yeah, man, those are great memories there, man. But yeah, Corrales, that was a heartbreaker for me, man, because
Yeah.
you know, I invested a lot in him. Let me tell you, man. I was telling everybody he was gonna knock Pretty Boy Floyd out.
No,
And when
if
he
you follow it, man, he was going through like what's up with his baby's mom, or I think he was in county jail
he's
for
in
like a week
jail,
or
yeah,
two. Yeah,
yeah,
and he came out and like trained, so he wasn't, his head wasn't there. And it might have been like too early. He should have just fought some other fights and then build it up for a big mega fight.
yeah.
But
And he was actually the favorite going into that fight. He was the
was he?
betting favorite going into that, man. Yeah. Because he was knocking everybody out, man. He was a big dude with the little short punches that he would throw. He would go
Yeah.
around the shoulders of guys and just hook them, like it was a thing of beauty, you know. And he was never out of a fight. I mean, we saw that in the Castillo, the first fight. I mean, the guy
Yeah.
was on the brink of being stopped. The referee was right there, and he landed
Did
some shit, man.
did he knock out Casamayor? Joel Casamayor? Or did Casamayor beat him?
The first time they fought, he had a he had a freak thing happen with his mouthpiece. The mouthpiece broke and literally pierced like this part of his lip, like above his lip.
Okay, yeah.
And it was bleeding so much they had to stop it. And I remember he was we used to always laugh because he's begging the doctor. He's like, "Give me one more round, one more
Yeah.
round." Because he did hurt
Yeah.
Casamayor that round,
And, then the
but they didn't
second.
let him. They didn't let him get in there for another round. But he did beat him in the second fight. He did beat
Yeah.
him in the second fight, and he also got a knockout against Acelino Freitas, I believe,
Yeah, he beat
who
up
was
Popo
a popular
Freitas.
guy at the time. Yeah,
Yeah, he
Popo.
wasn't yeah. Yeah. One of
Good
the
times,
best.
man. Yeah, good times. Let's see. D Style says Lascano had Hatton hurt, but they stopped the fight to tie Hatton's laces.
Yeah, those laces, he had him hurt. And they stopped, and that was like, and then Ricky Hatton barely like wobbled him and they stopped the fight. It's like,
Yep. Yep.
yeah, that's right, over some laces.
Damn, man. The fix was in, bro. The fix was
Yeah.
in. Because I think did he had already fought Mayweather before that, or was that leading up to the Mayweather fight for Hatton? I can't remember.
It was after it was he bailed on the Mayweather fight, and I forgot who Mayweather ended up fighting, and then he went and fought Castillo and lost to Castillo. And then
Yeah.
as he's coming back, he took the fight with Hatton.
And that
Hatton
cut.
was like was supposed Juan Loscano was never a stepping stone, but like it was Hatton had got knocked out by Mayweather, I think, and then was trying, but it was a comeback fight for both of them, and Juan just got the raw side of the deal. It just wasn't the same after that.
Yeah. And that fight with Castillo was it was on the undercard of a big pay-per-view fight.
Yeah, it
I
was.
want to say it was like a Hopkins, maybe like a Hopkins Jermaine Taylor undercard, or something like that, man. It was a big fight. I remember because we were pumped up when we ordered that pay-per-view, and I was like, Lascano's on the undercard too. Hell yeah, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
AJ Ten says Lascano did hurt him, man. He had him buzzed badly, you know. See, he caught Hatton with a check hook, similar to Floyd's. Yeah, sneaky little shot. Yeah, sneaky
Right in the
little
middle
shot.
of the ring, you heard him. You heard him. I remember. That was I was thinking. I was just so mad that year because you have two of the hopes of Sacramento, Juan Lascano and Willie Joran, just get stopped and by the referees because Willie Joran was hurt in the first round by Chololo, but Lilarios, but I was right there, like second to ringside. I see Willie like he was taking his time to get up, not because he was hurt. He was just letting the count go. Jumped up and he wobbled a little bit and they stopped it. He was more like jumped up off of balance and like wobbled and they stopped it. And then you have what happened with Lascano. The referee step in and stop it early. Bullshit.
Yeah.
Bullshit,
Yeah. And that's what you're supposed to do. You get knocked down, you know, hey, take eight. You know, don't want to jump up too quick. And I mean, we see fighters like here's a good example of that. When Costa Tszyu fought Zab Judah, he caught Judah with a clean right hand, but Judah jumped up too quickly. The legs weren't there. Ended up doing the moonwalk and all that other stuff and went back down. And then Jay Nady stopped the fight. You know, I mean, take the 8. You know, sit there, try to collect yourself. You know, take the 8. But you know, it is what it is, man. I got some other guys here. E. Woodson in the house. What's up, man? Go back and check me on archive, man. I'm here with my boy Danny Savala, who's a former pro fighter. A lot of good stuff, man, that he put out here, man. Was on the undercard of Sturm Della.
Yeah, Felix Sturm.
Yeah, and Hopkins fought. He fought somebody then. I forgot who it was. But he beat the shit out of some dude. I remember that. But hey, man, Sturm. I thought Sturm beat De La Hoya that night, man. De La Hoya came in looking real out of shape too.
Felix Sturm? No way. No way. Hey, speaking of Costa Tszyu and Styles, I was gonna say this earlier. When it could Canelo beat a Costa Tszyu? No, Costa Tszyu was a raw dog fighter, but he had just a little bit of a boxing ability and some style to get over past a one-dimensional Canelo. That's my only beef with Canelo is he's, like I said, it's in the division. Imagine him against Andre Ward at 154 or even like a Costa Tszyu at 147. He just doesn't have the athletic or he's just two-dimensional.
Yeah, and the thing with Tszyu too is that he had great timing on that right hand. I mean, you know, he wasn't the fastest guy, and we saw it with Judah because Judah was blazing him that first round. I mean, he was out there throwing some fast, good combinations on him. He was catching him, but hey, when you got timing, you could beat speed, man. And that's something that I think is a lost art in today's sport, man.
Yeah, Costa Tszyu was a good one.
Yeah, I liked him. I liked him a lot, man, when he was fighting. Even though he beat up my boy Chavez at the end of his career.
Yeah.
but that's all good, man. You know what, man? It's been a blast, man, having you on. I'm glad we finally got a chance to get on here and talk some boxing, man. Anything you want to say, man, to anybody into the chat? Anything, man?
Shout out to Vacaville. I saw Vacaville on here. Vacaville Power always put it down. Always had a classy boxing group of boxing fighters and amateurs. So much love to Vacaville or whoever's in Vacaville. And lastly, I'm gonna tell a quick story before I head out. It's because I never got to tell the people in LA that they didn't run me out of their gym. They just never seen me again. So I was in LA in 2009, 2010. I was in college at Cal State Northridge, and I had been looking for a gym to fight at or to go to workout just to stay in shape, but I couldn't find one. And I happened to be working at a restaurant where the chef's last name was Goosen. Just never realized. Him and I were always talking about boxing. And I asked him one day, I said, hey, do you know a gym where I can go to? He's like, yeah, go to my dad's. So his name was Chris Goosen. His dad is Dan Goosen. So the 10 Goose Boxing Gym was right on Van Nuys Boulevard, around the corner where I lived. So I started going to that gym that summer of 2009. And I'm working in there. And obviously Joe Goosen is there, and a bunch of Mr. T's there. Everyone, it's tight, man, right? And I'm hitting the bag, and I'm looking good because I got skills. And I start talking to people. And one day, Joe Goosen says, "Hey, Savala, you want to go a few rounds? You feel ready?" Because he sees he got a fighter in there, and knowing damn well I was not in shape, I was not ready, had no timing. What did I say? Yeah, yeah, I'll do it. I'm ready. I'll be ready tomorrow. I was not. I was I was just hitting the bag, man. So I show up to the gym the next day, and I did 3 rounds with like one of their scrub fighters. Like, it was a scrub fighter in the gym working out. I think they were just trying to get me in in sparring shape so I can help some of the other fighters because. And I was doing good, but then I got tired and I got hit the last round, and my nose was bloody. And so, okay, I got out, left. I went home, was going to go back to the gym the next day like I always do, but they changed my schedule at work that day, and I went from working days to working nights, and I was never able to go back to the Ten Goose gym to finish my training. So it's always eating at me that these motherfuckers think they ran me out of the gym. Well, I'm here to say, anyone there, I didn't know, it ran me out the gym. I was going to come back. So that's all. It's a cool story, man. Loved it out
That's
there.
that's right. You heard it first right here, man. My boy
I didn't get
Danny
ran out
ain't
of the
running
gym.
from no smoke. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, guys, it's been a great show, man. Glad we finally got a chance to chop it up here on my channel, man. Anytime you want to come back, man, it's all good, man. You're always welcome. And thanks to everybody that came in the chat. Everybody that make sure you jab that like button, like my boy D Style says. Make sure you like, subscribe if you're not subscribed to me. And we're going to get on out of here, man. Thank you guys. Have a good night. Stay safe out there. We out.